How did we meet? That's a good one. Okay. Well, I joined the CBs directly after the divorce of my last wife. I decided that I didn't want to make any more bad mistakes for a while, so I was going to let somebody else do it. And I joined the Navy right after 9/11. Her and I were splitting up before 9/11, but once 9/11 happened, I just felt that there was a calling for me to join. And I almost joined once when I was 18, but I backed out. So I joined the Navy, and I didn't want to be in combat. That's why I joined the Navy. And the recruiter said, well, gave me a list of all these jobs that I could do. And my dad had told me about the CBs, which were a construction force. And I was like, hey, well, I already know construction. That'll be cool. So I joined the CBs, which of course put me in combat right next to the Marines, and I think I spent six weeks or 12 weeks in Gulfport in A school, and it was about 2 weeks after I graduated A school, top of my class, by the way, and joined my first battalion, NMCB 74, my only battalion. We deployed to Iraq, Puerto Rico. We went to Puerto Rico that time. So Puerto Rico was a blast. It was working 8 hours a day and drinking 6. So I mean, Puerto Rico was a party. It was like having a construction job in Hawaii. It was awesome. Best times I had were in Puerto Rico, as far as my military experience. So I came home from Puerto Rico, or Puerto Rico, however you want me to say it. And when I got home, I met, while I was in the military, I met this guy named Stormy Smith. Skinny little guy, something with his metabolism. He could not put weight on at all. He looked like a walking skeleton. Computer nerd, Dungeons and Dragons nerd, basically everything I was looking for in a best friend. So we became really good friends. He introduced me to another friend of his, Bob, who was a really good friend of mine. Well, we became friends anyway. A really good friend of his, and we became friends. And then they introduced me to another guy named Russell. And Russell was married to a woman named Selena. And Selena is Codie's best friend. So Codie was down in Gulfport visiting Selena and Russell. They all went to high school together. When I got back from Puerto Rico the first time, my first deployment. So we met, and a few weeks later she was pregnant. We didn't know if it was mine or not, but I didn't care at that point. I was already in love with her and in love with the fact that the baby might be mine. So I asked her to marry me, and at the time I asked her to marry me quickly because I was living in the barracks, and Russell was trying to kick her out and make her go back home to Indiana. Mainly just three's a crowd kind of a thing in a small apartment. So I married her so that I would get housing allowance, so we could move off the base and get an apartment together. It was like an extra $750 a month, and then another extra $250 for food. So we moved off base and lived together in a trailer park right outside of the base for the rest of that home port, which was about 10 months. And then the next deployment that we had was to Kuwait, and I went to Kuwait for 8 months. Or no, it was supposed to be 6, and they extended it to 10, I believe. The time doesn't really, I don't really remember how much time I was over there. It was too damn long, is how long I was over there. But I went to Kuwait, but first we deployed to Spain, and we were in Spain for a month. And the day we were redeploying from Spain, Spain was just kind of like a spot to sit until we redeployed to Iraq or Kuwait. It was Kuwait the first time. And the day we were supposed to redeploy, Codie called the command, and she was in labor. So as everybody has got all of their stuff sitting in the truck waiting to go to the airport to fly to Kuwait, I was on the phone talking to Codie, and the commander let me talk to her until they took the phone away from her and wheeled her into the emergency room, or into the delivery room. So I got on the plane not knowing if she was okay, not knowing if the baby was okay or if the baby was mine or anything else. And when I landed in Kuwait, it took me about 8 hours to get to a phone. And when I finally got to a phone and called her, she was crying. She didn't even want to talk to me on the phone. She was embarrassed and sorry. And she was like, I got the worst news. And I was like, unless the baby died, there's not bad news. And she said, he can't be yours. And I was like, I don't care if he's mine or not. He's gonna be mine. I'm already in love with him. I'd already accepted him as mine. I'd already decided to take all the responsibility. Because Codie was with somebody before she met me. It's not like she was whoring around or anything. Codie's a good girl. So there was just, from the very beginning, from the very get-go, we knew that there was a chance that William wasn't mine. And he knows, he knows now. We talked to him. He's met his bio dad. I don't think he's too impressed with his bio dad, but he knows that he has the ability to have a relationship with him if he wants to. And they're friends on Facebook. And William's grandmother from that side of the family sends him presents on his birthday and on Christmas, and tries to get him to call all the time. And it all worked out the way it worked out. I wouldn't trade him in for anything. He's a great kid. And that's how Codie and I met, and that's how our family started. And then when I came back from Kuwait that time, of course, that home port, I knocked her up again. And then when I got back from Iraq, Brennan was born a few months later, and I had already been discharged, and Brennan was born, I think, a month after I had been discharged. And I was there for that one. And lucky for Codie, Brennan turned out to be mine. Just kidding, honey. I love you. But that's the story. That's how the family started.